Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and today's episode is been a long time coming. I finally got in the studio a lady who is dear and dear to my heart. We've met each other when I was in Boulder some years ago. She's very special to us in more ways than one, business wise. She is the first person who introduced us to the Lucia Light, and we really want to really thank her for that because it really upgraded our system quite a bit, especially with we have this new system starting in the UK, the combined healing therapies, and in Canada. And we're doing the US store, and I wanted to invite her to the US store. So today we're going to be bringing in Allison Pelissier. Hello, Allison.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes. So, Allison, today we're going to be picking your brain, okay?
Great.
Allison is the lady who introduced us to the Lucia Light. She is the lady who has sold us more than one Lucia Light. She is the brains behind the Lucia Light operation. She's not the inventor, but she is the brains behind us adding it into the system. And we've been trying to get in touch with Allison for a while, but she is a, jet setter. She's a global trotter. So, Allison, first of all, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, welcome to speak with you all today and share some information and excitement. I've been working with the Lucia Light for about a decade now, which is pretty amazing. I also have programs to help people hold space, learn to hold space for themselves, to access their higher intuition and all kinds of other magic happenings in their lives. And I give the trainings for the Lucia Light to help integrate it into different systems, or for people interested in using it for their personal use to amplify their lives in all kinds of magical ways. So there's a little start.
Yeah, well, that's a hell of an introduction. But let me explain that the Lucia Light has been one of the foundational pieces in the combined healing system. And if you guys need a Lucia Light, we'll be giving you Allison's contact a little later in the broadcast. But Allison, let's start from the beginning. Tell us about the Lucia Light, who invented it, what it does, and then I will just pop in and ask you a few more questions because there are a few things that I want to learn as well. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So Lucia Light comes from Austria, and you can call it Lucia or Lucia. It was developed by a neurologist, Dr. Dirk Prockel, and a psychiatrist, Dr. Engelbert Winkler. And Dr. Engelbert Winkler started exploring near-death experiences when he had a near-death experience of his own as a child. And before this experience, he had a lot of trouble being human, as some of you may resonate with, finding it very difficult to be on this planet and having a lot of challenges, even as a child, wondering why he was here. In the near-death experience, he went into the tunnel of light that so many describe. He had a choice to come back, and he saw the beauty of death itself and the magic of the space beyond this reality. And when he chose to come back, it was a choice that changed his life forever, because instead of feeling like he was stuck in this simulation without a choice, he felt like he chose to be here, and he really wanted to make a difference on this planet. His obsession with near-death experience continued for years. He did a lot of research with interviewing hundreds of people who had these experiences, and started working with hypnotherapy with a solid lamp light to guide people into an experience of a near-death experience, with the goal being to help people kind of reset their awareness and actually, again, choose to be here instead of feeling like they were suffering. So he was working with the solid light, and that was going well to an extent. And then one evening, he was speaking with his dear friend, Dr. Dirk Prockel, a neurologist, about it. And Dirk recommended, have you ever integrated flickering light with solid light? So a lot of the Lucia Light sessions begin with this warm glow of light, and it's a wide spectrum light from a halogen, so it's really amazing for your system on a lot of levels. And this wide spectrum solid light really opens the field, and then the flickering light is what starts driving your brain waves gently into a deep state of meditation and relaxation. What was surprising about this experiment was, to both of them, more than they ever expected, was the incredible array of colors and patterns and fractals and, deep, deep experiences that people were having. They really, as Dr. Winkler says, the Lucia number 3 is kind of ahead of science itself in terms of we understand some aspects of how it works with the brain, but it's not really a direct entrainment device. It's actually more about gently starting to open these neural pathways in your brain and send light through your whole system, through your fascia, and start unwinding the nervous system. And at the same time, getting you into this trance state, on a very gentle version of a trance state that's also deeply relaxing. And it kind of is like a combination of a psychedelic experience and a deep meditation and channeling experience with your guides. People have
I know it. I know it well.
Yes. So that's how it all started, was with that research. And now it's been, it was on, actually the first light was finished in production on 9/9/9. It was 2009. But it was a coincidence that it came through on that date. And yeah, they really created it with the intention for it to be made with fair trade labor. They make it in Austria, all the different parts. It's metal. It's really highly designed. And unlike a lot of technology these days, it's really designed to last for a lifetime. So it's a really special technology with, again, it wasn't really like how much money can we make off this or how vastly can we distribute it, but it was really the intention of the doctors of being able to create something really special. And that has continued to serve people around the globe. And it's been just such a great friend for me in my life in so many ways as well.
Yes, so I have a Lucia Light number 3, and I have been experimenting with it. And as I told you before, what we had done is we made a modular system out of it, a cascading modular system linked with PEMF and so on. Okay, so what we've been doing, I don't know if you've ever heard of Cubios. It's a research software that scientists and universities use. So what I've been doing specifically, is feeding the data while under the new Lucia Light to the software. It checks for heart rate variability, and what it does, it puts the markers for the triggers for the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. What these doctors have developed is something way ahead of anything that we've seen in terms of just regular therapy. There are lots of people who profess to do therapy which calms the nervous system, but it takes at least 20 minutes for the whole biofeedback and the co-regulation to happen. So as an example, if I was a Reiki practitioner or a CST practitioner or a somatic experiencing practitioner, there's a co-regulation that happens over a period of time, which drops the clients out of the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so what we found is that light takes like between 5 to 10 minutes. Between 5 to 10 minutes before it begins to affect the nervous system positively.
Yeah, and it's really a recalibration too, which is also interesting. A lot of tools are just for down regulating directly into the parasympathetic. But the Lucia, I describe it sometimes as a roller coaster, where in the beginning, it's actually this intensity. And this intensity at the beginning, which you learn to love after a few sessions. Sometimes the first session is like, whoa, there's a lot coming in, but it's a lot of input. And in that input, your system goes through this wave. And the goal is not to just keep you in a relaxed state, but actually to help increase the flexibility in your system so that you can move between states, because we don't want to be just relaxed jello all the time, and we don't want to be hyperstimulated all the time, but we want to be able to ride in the flow of life, right? And have that wave. And so that's really what Lucia is helping you with. It's not just down regulating, but it's really kind of rebooting your whole system and really creating these new patterns in your neural sphere, so that even in moments of intensity, the body can learn that it doesn't have to stay in this rigid pattern of sympathetic activation, but actually can start saying like, oh, okay, I'm still safe. Even with intensity, I am safe and I know how to let go.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Which is the goal of a strengthened nervous system, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to be flexible. My question to you is, a lot of people are going to ask you this question. I'm sure you get this question a lot. What's in it for me? What are the benefits?
Totally. So yeah, people often do ask that. And again, I mean, we talk about the nervous system as being this really central component to life, because it is. It's the electricity that runs through our body. It's what gives us energy, what allows us to be in states of, connection or in activation or in relaxation. So it's kind of like the underlying foundation to all of life. And that being said, how that kind of works out in terms of benefits is, stress reduction is one of the first benefits. And I think it's, sometimes not considered that sexy by certain people because they want to, like, oh yeah, stress reduction. But actually, yes, stress reduction, think about how it impacts every layer of your life when you have high volumes of stress. Every person you interact with is also, as you said, co-regulating, right, to your nervous system. So if you're stressed, you're providing this
Creating
cascade
stress.
of
What is
stress to
stress?
everyone around you,
Right.
so it's not even just your life. It's like how everyone perceives you, how everyone interacts with you, and therefore what opportunities actually can come into your life. And, we talk a lot about, creating your own reality. And it's like, yes, we can totally create our own reality.
Mhm.
And if we're in this high level of stress all the time, then we can't, because we can only create what's in our scope of reality, right? And when you have that high level of stress, it's kind of like you're like looking at life through these little pinholes instead of actually being able to see all of the magic. And once you start releasing those little pinholes and that tightening, and you're like, oh my God, look at all these possibilities,
Look
you
at all
can,
the colors. Look at all the things that have been missing. Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's more possibility.
A lot of people come with the vision narrowed down to whatever
Mm-hmm.
stresses and so on. It locks them into their own little corner of the world. And the light does make a difference to a lot of people where this is concerned. We've done a few experiments with regard to people and so on who have been highly stressed. I could pretty much tell you what we've been doing. So we took a random sample of the population when we were in Barbados. We took a politician because we assumed that a politician is highly stressed. We got a lawyer, a lawyer to come into the system as well. We put them under your Lucia Light and so on. They had groundbreaking experiences. So what I have found, is just me. People who meditate, who meditate, who live this life of, how should I say, a de-stressed life. The light affects differently. But if you are highly stressed, it is a big, big impact that it has in the form of people coming and they, like the politician came out, told me that he saw Jesus, right? Like, oh, my bad.
Great.
He saw Jesus
So
in the
great.
light.
Beautiful.
He saw Jesus. And the lawyer couldn't even speak after that, right? She couldn't even speak. It was one of the most profound experiences that she's had. Why is it that, the more highly stressed you are, the bigger impact the light seems to have?
Well, it's so interesting. And I've had people like that who come in and they're like, oh, well, they didn't have this groundbreaking experience. And I was like, well, actually, that's a compliment in a way to your system, because sometimes, we're always looking, our ego and our, dopamine really is looking for these huge experiences, right?
Mhm.
Because we think that signifies something special. And really, what the light is doing is not trying to give you this big experience. It's giving you what you need. And what I found is that people who are highly stressed, the first thing they need is a groundbreaking experience to reset, right? Because it's like,
Mm.
whoop, pattern interrupt, we need
Yes.
to come in here and
Pass and interrupt. Correct.
something's got to change. This is not kosher,
Not
right?
working for
It's not
me.
working. Yeah, so that's kind of like the first stage. And then I find people that have already a higher, tuned nervous system, who live that more relaxed life, who are more in their center, what it actually works with at that point, right? Because it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like what you need first is to relax. And then the second thing, then once you're relaxed, you can actually start working with your subtle energy, perceptivity, and receptivity to life, and start working with accessing, channels to, higher states of awareness. But you can't do that if you're really stressed. So although, you may not see such a immediate large shift if you're already in a more centered space, but what it is doing is working on this higher tuning, like these very more delicate tuning of your nervous system in order to access these really beautiful experiences and help you kind of give you training wheels to access this without the light, right? And so your life becomes a more mystical space where you're really attuned with your intuition and able to be really present with people. Because I'm an intuitive guide and reader, and I do readings, and everyone has that possibility. Really, it's how much you're in tune with yourself, your system, and then therefore you can open your channel, right, to be present. So we all are moving in that direction. And yes, you might see a really big shift if you're really stressed out. And that's, and again, everyone gets stressed out sometimes. So even the very centered people can use it, right? Have those big moments. But I also would say that it's, in a way, a complement to the lifestyle that you're doing if you don't have this profound revelation, because it means you're on track in some ways, and it's more about fine tuning, and that's great. You don't want to start over again with learning about what's happening. You're further along in the spiral of healing.
So my personal experiences with the light, um, because I've had it for a while. I didn't go in on a session. I have one outside. When this interview is finished, I'm going back on the light. Who knows, right? I've had it for a while, and I find that when you, and this is going to sound as corny as all hell, when you let the light shine in, there's a song that goes like that. When you allow the light to shine in, so to speak, my experiences tend to be more intense and more profound, right? Because there's a natural resistance of thought that people have. Like, what are all these colors? Oh, that's really cool. What does that try to tell me? When the surface mind, the ego mind, right, the conscious mind is trying to logically make sense of what is happening, it's a kind of barrier. But after you've had it for a while, you literally bypass that very easily, and you say, let the light shine in, man. And really and truly, if we are, a lot of people in the metaphysical circle say we're beings of light. We're beings that are made out of light, right? um, yeah, you believe that, but do you know it? Do you know it experientially? you know and so I think that when you literally let the light shine in, God, every time I say that, right? But that's exactly, there's no other way to put that. When you let the light shine in, the light tends to work with you a little bit better.
Yes, exactly. And that's it, right? And it's the same as the practice of meditation in that regard, right? It's a practice. And so the light is different every time you do it, which I'm sure you've noticed, because we're different every time we
Hmm.
experience something. And same with meditation, and so sometimes there's more of that surface kind of mental talk in your field, and you learn to actually move beyond it and let that light shine in, right? And then in life it's the same thing. So I feel like it's so interesting with the Lucia, because the experiences themselves are so profound, right, on their own.
Hmm.
And what's in a way maybe even more profound is the effect that they have on your regular life, because it's like a training. It's every time you go into it, it is training you for how you're going to show up in regular life. Because just like, and you have those mental thoughts come up, so many people, whether you're sensitive to other people's thought projections at you, and you can feel that, and you turn that into some distorted internal mental dialogue about not being good enough or something, or on the other contrary end, maybe you're that person sending those thoughts of judging other people because of your own insecurities. These are all just sort of surface mental processes. That is not who we are, right?
Correct.
And so the working with a tool of the Lucia Light is an incredible practice of being able to quickly move through that, dismiss it, like, okay, yeah, I'm not interested in that. I have some deeper work to do here. I want to get to the beauty, right, and the magic of this experience. And same with life, right? We don't need to rest in those states like maybe they, and it's a practice, it gets smaller and smaller how we're dealing with that. And just like in the light, it gets easier and easier to just drop in.
So Allison and I have been talking for a little while now. On every broadcast that we appear on, I always make the point. Allison is intuitive. She does readings and so on, but she also has a very logical process. Since we're talking about logical process, Allison's background. Tell us how you got into this light, and tell us your story, Allison.
Absolutely, yeah. So, my background was always, since a young child, I had that intuitive sense, but I was also very perplexed by the state of humanity and wanting to help out in some way possible. Mm-hmm. And originally, I was more interested in education because I felt like that was a system that was really saved me in a way. It gave me that structure, positive feedback, and all of that because I was blessed with a healthy mind in this life, which has positives and also challenges. But yeah, so that, so I was originally following that, but, I was doing a master's, and so my undergrad was actually in political economics because I was trying to learn about the world, and psychology.
Wow, that's a big jump you made.
Yeah, I know, right? I was starting in political economics and psychology. I'm like, I need to understand the context, right? And then I also need to understand the person, like the psychological aspects. And then in graduate school, I studied international education and development with the goal to be of service in the world in that way. And what I found out, unfortunately, as many do, is I got disillusioned with large NGOs and kind of, value systems being projected from the 1%, the donors having their own opinions on how the world should be run, which is an interesting concept of how things work.
Oh, that's a whole new show. That's a whole other show that we had to talk about.
Exactly. So I'll brush past it. But basically, I got very frustrated with the idea of trying to help someone externally with an idea, right, that I wasn't even necessarily in alignment with. I was just being kind of subscribed to. And during that process of disillusionment, in the middle of it, my dad got really sick. And we were super close. So I ended up leaving the graduate program, coming back and taking care of him and spending some really beautiful quality time with him. And he ended up passing away. And when I went back to school, I was devastated. I went through my own dark night of the soul on a huge level. And I was dealing with all the PTSD symptoms of all these childhood traumas coming up that I had conveniently forgotten about until that moment. Our bodies are amazing. So I was like, oh my God.
At times, yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting how we process things. And so, it was like a flood of things happening in my system. And I started getting really disconnected. I was having problems sleeping. I was depressed. It was just adding on, but I had that, I'm a survivor. I'm like a fighter. Like, I don't need help kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, I know it. I know it.
Yeah. And so I ended up going to an art gallery. And at this art gallery, I tried the Lucia Light. And, again, I was one of those people who really needed a wake-up call, right? Which is why I had such an immense experience my first time. My guides were all there with me. And they're the ones who forced me to go, even though I was so, resistant to doing anything at that stage. Depression's a real thing. And so I went into the light. I was like, okay, let's just do this. I don't know what to expect. And wow, I just was stunned by the beauty of the colors and the patterns and beyond, it's like so weird to be like, oh, beautiful colors and patterns, cool, but there's something to it. It's like you're creating it. It's like you're seeing your own consciousness, and there's something, and just giving me chills, like even thinking about it. There's something in that beauty that's self-created, that you start seeing yourself. And in my experience, after the demos are like, you want to keep going? And I was like, yes. Like
Yes.
I'll find a way to pay for this. I'll borrow money from my friend. I was broke at the time. And so I ended up just like really going in for it. And during that experience, I went straight through the colors and patterns, through the initial layers of the experience. I had my father came in, who had passed away, and we ended up having this incredible conversation about, just choosing to be happy afterwards, and him reminding me that he was always there for me, and I didn't need to put my life on hold to kind of go through this grieving process, that I was like, he would always be there, touching, even thinking about it now. And yeah, it was something just like, it was like a cascade effect through my whole system. I was just like, every layer of my being was able to relax. And, that's a lot of what PTSD is just this constant hypervigilance. You're on edge, something so life-shattering happened, and even it doesn't matter. There's no comparison, right, of what it was, but however your system was perceiving whatever happened, it was just so remarkably unsafe, right? That now you're just stuck in that zone. And and through one session, I actually was able to shift that first layer of the system and really come home to myself. So I slept for 8 hours afterwards. I was dancing in the rain. I was like, if you've been in that PTSD, it's like there's a wall of glass between you and the world. It's like you're like you want to connect, but you're just not really in your body, so you can't connect the same way you used to. And people are like, oh, you seem fine. And you're not fine. You're not fine, and that leads to the depression and all that stuff. And so for me, it was like the glass shattered, and I was able to connect again and sleep again. And my whole life just got so much better. And I finished my, master's degree with my straight A's, because I'm like that. and I finished it, but I was like, and I went and worked in Nepal, and I had this beautiful experience, but I was dreaming about the light. I was thinking about it all the time. And, I was just like, I have to do this. I have to work with this. I have to share this with people, because it was so life-changing for me. And so I ended up getting a hold of one and taking it around and starting sharing with people. And I learned a lot in that process. So I developed I went back to my psychology and education background, and kind of combined with my intuitive channeling of how I should do it. Most of the programs I've written, I'm rewriting it right now. And it's such a fun process, because so much just kind of gets downloaded through me. But yeah, of creating a whole ways to work with this system to hold space for people. And now it's, a joy to both offer sessions myself and offer that support for practitioners to set up their practice and, learn how to incorporate it. You guys have obviously taken it to the next level as usual with things, but there's different ways you can work with it in your practice or for personal use, and both are immensely rewarding. And I'm just so grateful for this whole journey.
Yes, I like what you said, because there are different ways to work with it, and it doesn't matter whether you are a Reiki practitioner. That light will actually help your client co-regulate with you a little bit better. It doesn't matter whether you're a psychologist or a psychotherapist. I'm a hypnotherapist. I teach hypnotherapist, okay, for IACT. And I can tell you that the light does a lot of heavy lifting, so to speak, that I would have to do if I was dealing with a client. Okay, it really does. So the product itself, like, tell us a little bit more about it, because honestly, I got into the weeds of the programs and so on, because, I'm a nerd, like you, by the way, just so you say anything, before you say anything, right? Because I'm a nerd. So I got into the programs. The light comes with different light profiles and programs. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start with, and sometimes this is something that needs to be heard multiple times, that the light is not a really the universe, again, is a reflection of the light, but the light is not like press this, you get that result, right? It's like,
Yes.
that's not really how things work.
Hmm.
Our mind really wants it like that. Our mind's like, where's the relaxation program? Where's this program? But when you're actually working on rebalancing your nervous system, it's more like listening to a piece of music. First of all, people like different things. Not everyone would find, some people do yoga with, heavy metal, and they find that the way to get into their zone. That's great. It's not me, but I think that's awesome.
I'm trying to imagine that in my mind right now. And that would be fun. I am going to try that,
yeah,
actually.
I think you would like that. I know. Yeah. So, it's like, but it's realizing, like, first of all, our brains are so unique. So any product, I'll just
Hmm.
say it straight out, that promises you that this brainwave state is going to give you this, and they can get you to that brainwave state by doing
Yeah,
this type of control on your brain, is first of all not going to work in the same way for every person, because we're all so unique, right? And it's actually kind of taking away your uniqueness and putting you back into this, the modern medical paradigm, which is basically like, you're broken and you need this to fix you. The
correct.
Lucia Light is coming from the understanding of, Viktor Frankl, of this deeper knowingness of your wholeness, right? Your wholeness that exists outside of all of these imbalances that come from our interaction with this 3D reality, whatever this is, and so really the light is about taking you back to that center. And so there's no one road that works for everyone. And like we said, even every time you do a session, it can be different. So there's 120 different pre-programmed sessions. And every people end up having their favorites, and sometimes their favorites change over time. You could really have one session and you could do the same session over and over again. And that could work for you. Other people find it great to do different sessions every time, but there's different names of the sessions. But instead of thinking of them as having specific effects, it's helpful to think of them as songs. So there's the more psychedelic type programs, which have a lot of changes of colors and patterns and things. Some people find that stimulation to be very opening, instead of their mind being able to start moving forward, it's like, wow, 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 it's changing. And, it's not usually even the frequency that changes. It's sometimes the brightness or the, kind of the type of flickering. So is it this like fast flicker, or is it just mostly off and then just like a little light, or is it mostly on with just off for a little bit? There's like a texture to how that the frequency, the flickering works. But again, it's really, the goal of Lucia is not to get overly wrapped up into the mental details, which again, for people like us, can be challenging. It took me years to kind of
Correct.
accept this, right? Because I was just like, no, but I need to know the frequencies, and I need to, I'm sure there's a way that we can prove that this works for that. And it took a lot of unwinding and deprogramming of my own system to realize that, like, oh, wait, the quantum shifts don't happen from the mind. Like, the quantum shifts, which is what the Lucia is so great for, don't happen because of, the mind understanding how this one frequency works. So the sessions range in different frequencies. They usually have a couple frequencies throughout the program, but they don't really share that information because they're trying to get you to not be in that mental state, that they're trying to get you to surrender, right? Because again, the more information we go in with, sometimes the harder it can be to let go. Just another layer to let go of. But, there are a variety of sessions. They work from, frequency. So the flash pulse rate goes from, about 3 hertz all the way up to, I think the highest program's like 80 or so.
Mhm.
But once you're past about 40, 50, 60, it looks solid. So it's also very interesting because, even you're looking at a flashing light right now, which is the computer screen or whatever you're watching this on. But it's at a very high flicker rate, right? So that you don't even notice that it's flickering. So, and they've done very interesting studies, more recently with gamma, waves in the brain, which are these really high frequency pulsations that happen. Dr. Joe Dispenza has done a lot of work with that, of seeing these spikes of gamma come through. But, again, there's just not one set recipe that works every time. And the more you're trying to look for that one experience, the less you're going to have it. And, that's the same with psychedelic experiences, plant medicine, whatever you want to call it. With ayahuasca, for example, there's people who can go in and block it. This is the strongest kind of alteration on the planet. And yes.
Yeah, plant medicine is.
Yes. And you can stop yourself from having that experience. And so in the same way with the Lucia, if you really, get stuck in that mind, which is difficult because it is so beautiful that you start kind of just unwinding into it, but you can stop yourself. So the idea with the programs, the sessions, is that you intuitively scroll through these names, which vary from something like clouds to color storm to Stargate to Sundance. There's like all these different sessions, and you can kind of intuitively, just like you would with picking angel cards or something, start tuning into like, which is jumping out at me right now, and then choose a session. And and then there's different parameters. Like the most important thing is actually not what session you choose, but what intensity you choose. So there's a way to choose the brightness of the light, because again, every day we're different, and at different phases of our life, we can be more sensitive to brightness of light than others. And again, it's not something to judge or analyze so much as to see as a reflection, right? Of, we get this information and we are practicing learning to see it without taking it into the judgment zone and just being like, oh, that's sweet. And then seeing, like for myself, like I'm a woman, I have a female body in this life, and I have a menstrual cycle, right? And that cycle means my system is very different at different points in the month. So I've also noticed that, the light I want changes, and sometimes I'm like, I want a really intense session. Like I'm feeling it, I'm in this mode, and then I get underneath it and I'm like, oh, actually I don't, I think I should be very gentle. So the work of a practitioner, of a space holder with a light, or the demonstrations, if you do it for yourself, because you can certainly hold space for yourself. Although it's usually, a little bit deeper if you go with a practitioner, a lot deeper, depending on who the practitioner is and your relationship with them. But yeah, so you select a session, and then, you start with the demonstrations to kind of test into where you're at in that day. And then you go into a deeper experience.
Okay, so I was actually going to ask you that question. You partially answered it. What does a Lucia Light session look like for Allison as the practitioner, and I suppose as the client?
Yeah, great. So, and again, the way I share how to hold space for sessions is, really to help you develop your own masterpiece, right? Because everyone is different too, right? Every practitioner is different. How we hold space is different. And so it's, it depends on the person. For me, the way I offer sessions is I have the person come in, we first tune in a little bit together, and, it's more about asking questions, me asking them questions like, what's your intention?
You do an intake, or how does that work?
I don't have a formal intake, but it's more of just, again, with my intuitive process of kind of like, what's going on here, and just starting to, we kind of call it opening the doorways in the mind. So like starting to kind of anything I see in their field, just start pulling forward, like what's happening with this or with that. And I don't ever comment on it. The beginning of the session is really just about opening those doors. And then asking if they have an intention for the experience. And then at that point, we open sacred space, so calling in guardians and guides, and like really setting that container, honoring the land that we're on and the spirits, and just like really setting that high frequency safe space. And then we go through the demonstration sessions, and that again is different with each client because everyone's different. Some people just get so into it, they don't want to be interrupted after 2 minutes to talk about it. They're like in it, and then other people do want to kind of touch base between them. So it depends on the person, but we do the demonstrations, and then I select a session for the longer period. And the sessions are pretty cool too, because you can actually pause them at different points. And pausing it means it just stays in that same frequency brightness setting. And so if someone's in a really deep space and I can feel that, or they look really happy, I can actually pause the session at that moment and allow them to go deeper into that space, which is really great, because a lot of the sessions are listed at about 20 minutes, but the goal is to actually pause it at different points and allow that deepening to happen. And then during the session, with the permission of the client, I do some energy work, tune into some, maybe, I see different things in people's auras and things. So I kind of work through things that way, help moving the energy along, because you're just getting, photon blasted by the light. There's a lot of energy coming in and it's going through the system. So I can kind of see where things are getting stuck and maybe support, different chakras or different areas of the body that way. And then after the session, just allowing them to rest for a little bit and share their experience. And then if they're interested or open to it, I will kind of reflect some things that I've experienced, like seen as well, or ask more questions potentially. And then they drink some water and they're off. And then I check in, the next day to see how things are going. And, and it can take some time, these are big processes. So it doesn't, immediately necessarily resolve things, but more just kind of shift things right into a different state. And we really recommend a series of sessions to, as you were speaking to before, get through the mental part and really learn to work with the energy of the light. And also because it takes about, the Dirk Prockel, the neurologist, suggests 6 sessions for more of a deeper recalibration of the nervous system. Because us humans, we're amazing at shifting and then going right back to our old patterns.
Correct.
And so it's, all this healing work and stuff, it's an ongoing process.
The proverbial relapse.
Yes.
Yes, because a lot of people get stuck, and when you shift, they go back to a place that is comfortable for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose my next question has to do with, from a client perspective, what should they expect? Because when a client comes into you, I assume that you have certain parameters. Like, what if a client comes into you drunk, as an example? I'm trying to imagine how that would play out. I have never tried it, but I can imagine that there are a lot of people with Lucia Lights out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of them are just collecting dust. Okay. There are not a lot of Lucia Lights in circulation, but if you have a Lucia Light that is collecting dust, I suggest you sell it to a therapist, because it's a very powerful tool. My next question is, from a client perspective, what are the contraindications, so to speak? I assume that being inebriated might be one of them.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny, in the beginning days when I was experimenting more, I took it more to festival kind of scenes, which I don't really do that much anymore. But, I had experience with people being drunk, and it just basically knocks them out. It will just put you to sleep faster than you can imagine. So, that's not recommended. Or you get nauseous, so definitely being sober, hydrated, and many people ask me like, oh, well, can I use psychedelics with the light and blah, blah, blah. And, I would definitely say that one of the amazing things about the Lucia is that you don't need anything. Like it's helping you remember that you have everything inside. It's all inside of you. These plant teachers and everything are so powerful and so sacred, and they're helping you remember. They're not something that you need to use all the time, right? So I would say, especially if you've never had a session before, that you should go in totally sober, rested, hydrated if possible, and with an open mind. It's good to have an intention, but the second you get into an expectation with the light, it has a very funny way of not delivering, because again, that mind is what holds the expectation, right? We can make intentions from the heart, but we can't make expectations from the heart. The heart doesn't hold expectations. The heart holds unconditional love. the heart holds the openness, right, to what's right and alignment. The mind is what expects things, wants certain outcomes, wants to control, right? And so if you're coming from the heart, then it's going to be a magical experience. If you're coming from the mind, you might have to let go of that first.
Yes, that's the 6 sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, and so also not recommended to drink a bunch of caffeine beforehand, because since, again, we're working with the nervous system, you can, but I can literally see it kind of like off gassing from people's systems. I'm like, oh, I can smell it coming out of the body. And, you can just, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to spend the whole session removing that coffee from your system, then go ahead and drink a big thing right before you come in. But it's, so it's better you can have your normal coffee in the morning. It's not like you have to force yourself to change or something. It's just more about like not having a bunch of stimulants right before you come in. So coming with an open mind, and then coming with a, intention again from the heart. I think that's the best thing you can do as a client. And, just being open to the experience and knowing that you might need to do it more than one time, that it's designed to be a series. And it's designed to maybe even after that be something that you come back in for once a month for a refresher. Or if, you have your light yourself, as most of us, hopefully, that have lights continue to use and aren't keeping in dust, even twice a week can be just a game changer to keep things in check, right? And to kind of keep ourselves into alignment. So just like a lot of people microdose, I think having those light, the benefit of the Lucia over working with psychedelics regularly is it's not hard on your liver. It's not going to be something that you have to be kind of processing through your system all the time. And it's not, it's something that it's like a healthy habit. Right. Mm-hmm. And so contraindications, it is a flashing light. So if you have a history of epilepsy or, a strong reactivity to light. I mean, I've definitely had people come in and they're like, oh, I'm really sensitive to light. So, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be maybe not the best alignment, because what is this but a really intense light, right? And so, okay, it's fine if you wear sunglasses or something, but just to know that this is an intense light, and that's kind of part of the experience and part of rewiring the nervous system is, as you were saying earlier, like letting that light into your system, right? So if you're really blocked against it, then and you really don't like light in, you live in a dark cave and you never go outside, then it might be really shocking for your system.
Oh, yeah.
That's one good thing to know. And then, other than that, you don't have to get off any medications or anything. Obviously, if you're more prone, again, if you just had eye surgery and you're really sensitive to light, or if you had a concussion right beforehand and your brain is still kind of needing some space, right, to have its process, within a few months of a concussion, it's not recommended. Alternatively, we've seen amazing benefits with people who, and again, this is not medical advice. It's just anecdotal. I'm like, ooh, that became an interesting word all of a sudden. Reports from what we've experienced with people. But if you've had concussions, people have had concussions in the past have had really incredible experiences. I mean, I had one guy who was just kind of really stuck in this. He had a really serious head injury, and he was stuck in this deadpan where he had no emotion, and his friend had him over to try it and he was laughing and talking to me and smiling, and she was just like, what did you do to him? Like, like I've never seen it. Like he hasn't been like
that. More often than not, that sounds like a restarting of a neural process in his brain.
Exactly. So so if you think about it, it's like, it's great for stagnation, on any level.
Correct. And I want to give you my personal experience with that. There have been times that I have had Lucia Light sessions, which is kind of like the jackhammering effect inside the neural process that restarts a process inside your mind, right? I have had these kinds of experiences, and I'm telling you that if for anything else, just a jump starting of certain neural processes in your head. Like all of a sudden you feel the need to pick up a paintbrush and start painting. Like, where did that come from? Right? Where did that come from? I haven't done that since I was like it's like I was in a yoga center, right? Or you have certain rushes of emotion that you haven't experienced in a long time. It is a jump start. It jumpstart. It does a connecting of certain neural processes, and this is just from my personal experience. So this is not anecdotal. This is real life experience that I've had where you've had sensations or urges after the Lucia Light that you haven't had in years,
Mhm.
like sesame seed sweets. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, that was the most recent one. I had a huge craving for sesame seed sweets, and they don't sell anywhere I am, so that wasn't so cool. But anyway,
Yeah, but it's bringing up this matter, right, from our, other periods of our life, and people have like experiences. People ask me too, like, can you have a bad experience? And we haven't had anyone have a bad experience, because even if trauma comes up or something, it's like you're witnessing it from a distance. It's kind of like you're watching it, but we haven't had anyone go straight into a PTSD memory. And as someone who was going through a lot of PTSD when I started it, it's
honestly, Allison, when it comes to experiences where the mind is unearthing stuff, I tend to shy away from using bad or good at all. All
yes,
experience is experience because it's still working for your highest good if you uncover something that is buried. Because just because it's buried doesn't mean that it's not controlling you in
yes,
some way, shape, or form.
absolutely. And I would just say that it's not like you with the Lucia Light, it's with people's experiences, they don't really relive it, like this experiences I've had that have been unearthed. It's not like I'm reliving it, but it's more like I'm able to see it from it more of a distance. It's like you can gain perspective. And that's, really the core of it is being able to gain new perspectives, build new neural pathways, right? And so it's less of, like, because, I mean, as you're right. And I agree with the good and bad doesn't work. But, say on people have had what they would term bad acid trips or something like that, where they just get stuck in a negative loop, right?
Ah, yeah.
And that doesn't happen with the Lucia. It's light pouring into your system.
Yeah, it's going to, yeah. I see exactly what you're talking about. The effects on the nervous system, parasympathetic and the sympathetic system, cannot be understated here. It is light pouring into your system. I think for a lot of people, when you talk about being beings of light and how your system reacts to light, it's a whole different game because people tend to think that the Lucia light is sort of isolated and only affecting your head. But guess what's inside there? The key to your entire nervous system.
Yes.
Okay? And so it's not just a head experience, so to speak, or
Mm-hmm.
localized experience to your skull or whatever. It actually does affect the entire body, as anybody who would have experienced it would tell you. Like, so for instance, I use the Lucia light in a gravity chair. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It makes a very big difference. You feel it absolutely everywhere
Yeah.
when you let the light shine in. Oh my God. I said it. I can,
And then, and then part of that, letting the light shine in too, is your intuition, right? So this is another benefit I share often, because I've seen it massively happen in my own life, right? I was highly psychic when I was young. Then I shut it off, as many do during puberty and all those times. And then it was slowly kind of trickling back in. And once I started working with Lucia Light, it was like, like, oh yeah, because it's like reawakening those pathways, right, that are
the
already there.
jackhammer effect.
Yes, the jackhammer right through your third eye. And some people are like, oh my God, I feel like this activation happening right here. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's reawakening. I mean, the light goes right along the optic nerve into the center of your brain. And, there's so much happening there. And with the pineal right there, it's reawakening things that have been, asleep. Because again, we all have this capacity to tune in. We just have a lot of blocks in the way of it,
Yes.
so the Lucia Light is helping remove those blocks, and therefore allow you to start accessing your own inner intuition. And, and part of that's your reactivity, which again leads back to the nervous system, right? Because if we're just in this state of reaction, you're not even listening to what the person said. If you've ever seen someone who's really in a loop with stuff, they're not listening. They're not capable of listening. Like literally when you're that highly activated, you cannot process sound. So like even if you're ever in an argument with someone and they're really loud, it's like they literally can't hear you. So it's not even worth your time to talk to them because they're so activated. And it's kind of the same with our intuition, right? If we have that high level of stress, or we just have all of this, pain and trauma and fear and, whatever it is in the way, we can't hear our own intuition. It's there. It doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that we're not able to be quiet enough to hear.
Correct. Understood.
Yeah.
Very good point. Well, that this has been interesting. You have something else going on that may involve the light, and that is that Bali soulscape, right? And I want you to
Yes.
tell me about it, tell the audience about it, because I am going to actually put the contacts on screen while you do that. Tell us about this retreat that you're planning.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. A dear friend of mine who's very heart-centered and just a really epic human in a lot of ways, Harrison. The two of us are holding a retreat in Bali, and it's going to be about, first getting attuned with local culture. I had the immense pleasure of being in Bali during the pandemic, which was incredible.
Yes, lucky you.
Yes, I was
Yeah,
very lucky,
no, I
very
spoke to
guided.
you during that time. I'm like, what? How are you in Bali?
I know, it was really amazing because I could hear my guidance and I followed it. And I ended up there in the land of the gods, and where the veils are thin and the prayer is plentiful and the frequency is high, and there's just so much magic there. And so it was a big dream of mine to be able to bring a small group of people. It's only going to be 10 people, and we're over half filled right now, but we just have a couple spots left for the retreat. And basically we're going to do a water purification ceremony at a temple, going to go to a local shaman, female shaman. She's incredible. And again, I've vetted a lot of different people there, and I'm very selective. So this is a really carefully curated experience. We're going to go, play with tune with the monkeys in the monkey forest and explore Ubud, the spiritual capital. And then we're going to do a deep dive on the west side of the island with a lot of deep processes in the heart space. And that's where we're going to be working with the Lucia Light, with a light and sound journey to go very deep within. You'll have the opportunity to do more individual light sessions as well if you'd like. We're going to be doing inner child work, parts work, meditations. We're going to go on a little adventure at sunrise one day to see dolphins. And you'll be able to connect with really incredible soul family, which is part of it. A lot of us have been through a big disconnection, and actually our community and our relations, our soul family is what we're connecting to. So if you're hearing this and you feel the frequency that's coming from me, that joy, excitement, sunshine is a nickname of mine. And you're ready to unleash that within yourself, right? If you feel attracted to this, it's because it's also in you, ready to be unleashed. Then I invite you to come there. It's about breaking, pattern, stagnation, and opening into that sense of self. And so it's for people who have really already been on the spiritual path for a little bit. It's okay if you're beginning, but we're going to do more advanced work, working with cacao as well, and blue lotus, because I'm really into these subtle energy frequencies and plants, and being able to practice really tuning into our intuition, opening that channel, and reshifting our nervous system and all of these different pathways to be able to actually manifest the life of our dreams and create our own reality, which is more than just a thought process. So really excited for it, and welcoming anyone who feels the call to reach out and ask any questions, check out the website. And yeah, like I said, we just have a few spots left. And so if you're interested, let me know.
And I'm going to vouch for Allison. She knows her stuff. She really does know her stuff, right? I don't vouch for many people, but this lady knows her stuff. It's not going to be one of those, and I know Allison well enough to know it's not going to be just another one of those pretty tourist retreats. All right. She's a little bit more subtle than that. So if you are thinking about doing something this year, definitely check out that website. It is ballysoulscape.com. And definitely check out Allison or send her an email. The email is actually on the crawler at the bottom of the screen. Allison, you
Mhm.
want to tell us the email?
Yes, my email is allisonlucialight@gmail.com. And also, yeah, I offer intuitive sessions, reflections, and if you're interested in working with the Lucia Light, either personally or for your practice, I'm happy to assist with that as well. So, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Allison, for coming out and being part of this broadcast. I want to thank you so much for everything, actually, for
Mm.
actually being able to um, give us the experience of the light when we were in Boulder, and we were very, very busy at that time. And Allison came in and she showed us some stuff that we had not seen before. So, thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear.
Oh, yes. Thanks for having me. Such a pleasure. I love the work you all are doing. And yeah, and you as a human are just such an incredible being, soul shining through. So thanks so much, David. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And guys, I will see you next week. Take care, everyone.